It was around 8 p.m. when David Monroe, the morgue technician at St. Helena County Hospital in Maine, walked slowly down the empty hallway. The sound of his footsteps echoed under the buzzing fluorescent lights. The air smelled of old disinfectant and cold metal, the scent of death itself. David had worked here for almost 20 years. He wasn't afraid of the dead. In fact, he treated death like an old friend. When others turned pale at the sight of blood, he just smiled and said, "It's just part of the job." Everyone in the hospital knew one thing. David Monroe feared nothing. As he reached the post-mortem room, he remembered last night's phone call from Dr. Ethan Walker, the hospital's senior pathologist and David's close friend. "David, I've got a new assistant for you. His name's Eric Parker. Kid's been giving me trouble. I'm putting him on your shift. You know what to do." "Don't worry," David replied with a grin. One night in the morgue and he'll beg to leave. But before hanging up, Ethan's tone grew strange. "David, one more thing. That boy Eric, he says he can see spirits. People are calling him cursed." "Ha! Ghosts don't walk into hospitals, Ethan. Only the bodies do." When David entered the autopsy room, Eric was already there, standing near a metal table with a covered body. He looked young, maybe 24, pale and uneasy. "You must be Eric," David said. "Why, yes, sir." "You scared of the dead?" "Not of the dead," Eric muttered softly. "Just of what comes after." David laughed. "That's the spirit." "Tonight's case is a rough one." He pulled the white sheet away. The body's skull was smashed face beyond recognition. The smell hit them like a wall. "Car accident," Eric whispered, almost like he already knew. David looked at him sharply. "You figure that out from just one look?" "Sometimes," Eric said quietly. "They tell me how they died." David smirked. "You mean ghosts talk to you? Kid, you need sleep." He picked up the surgical blade and sliced open the chest with practiced ease. The sound of steel cutting flesh filled the cold room. Blood trickled off the table, dripping onto the floor. "You do this without fear?" Eric asked, his voice trembling. "I've done it 1,000 times," David replied. "The dead can't feel pain, but they can watch," Eric said, eyes fixed on the body. David frowned, shaking his head. "You're one strange kid." He finished stitching the first body and moved toward the second table. Another corpse lay beneath a clean white sheet. A clipboard rested beside it with the patient's information. David picked it up casually, then froze. The name on the tag read David Monroe, male, 46. His hand shook. His throat went dry. He looked at Eric, whose face had suddenly gone calm, almost lifeless. "What kind of sick joke is this?" David shouted. "No joke," Eric said quietly. "You died last night. Heart attack in your sleep." David's heart pounded. "You're lying." "Check for yourself," Eric whispered. David turned toward the first body, the one he had just dissected. The face was his own. The room began to spin. The lights flickered. The air grew cold, unbearably cold. "No, I'm alive! I'm right here!" David screamed. "You said ghosts don't walk into hospitals," Eric replied. "But sometimes they never leave." At that exact moment, the morgue door creaked open. Dr. Ethan Walker and Nurse Olivia Grant stepped inside. "Eric, what's going on here?" Ethan shouted. "David Monroe died last night!" "We found his body at home this morning." David turned toward them, but they didn't see him. He waved, screamed, but his voice was gone. "If he's dead," Olivia whispered. "Then who opened this body?" Eric looked straight at David's spirit and said softly, "Maybe he came back to finish the job." A cold breeze blew through the half-open window. The lights dimmed again. Eric's last words echoed in the silence. Even David Monroe didn't believe in ghosts until he became one. The final light flickered and shattered. Darkness swallowed the room. Suspense line. The dead don't always stay silent. 2 days had passed since the incident at St. Helena County Hospital in Maine. The morgue had been sealed, yellow police tape across the door. The hospital called it a malfunction, but everyone who worked the night shift knew something unnatural had happened there. Dr. Ethan Walker hadn't slept properly in 48 hours. He was the hospital's senior pathologist, respected, logical, and calm. But lately, his dreams were filled with whispers and blood. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the pale face of David Monroe. his closest friend lying open on the autopsy table. That night, Ethan sat in his dim office, sipping cold coffee and staring at David's death report. Cause of death: cardiac arrest, it read. Ethan exhaled slowly. If only it were that simple. The phone on his desk rang sharply, making him flinch. He picked it up. Dr. Walker speaking. There was silence. Then came a faint whisper, slow and broken. "You forgot to close me up." Ethan froze. The phone slipped from his hand and hit the desk. The line went dead. He stood up, breathing fast. It had to be a prank. Maybe some intern with a sick sense of humor. But something deep inside told him otherwise. He grabbed his car keys and drove straight to the hospital basement. When he reached the morgue, the hallway was empty. The air was unnaturally cold. The tape on the door was torn apart. Inside, only one light flickered, the bulb above the autopsy table. And standing in that light was Eric Parker, a young attendant who worked under Ethan. He looked pale, eyes wide and red, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Eric, what are you doing here?" "They called me," Eric whispered.
"Who called you?"
"David Monroe. He said he's waiting for you." Ethan's heart pounded. "That's not possible." Eric pointed to one of the storage drawers. The metal tray was already pulled halfway open. The name tag read Monroe E-46. "He wants you to finish it," Eric murmured. "You left his body incomplete." "That's ridiculous," Ethan snapped. "He's dead." "You don't understand," Eric said. "When you open the dead and don't seal them back, their souls can't rest." Ethan stepped closer to the drawer. His hand trembled as he touched the cold metal. "David," he said quietly. The drawer suddenly slid open. Inside lay David's body, but his eyes were open. Ethan stumbled back, his breath shaking. Eric whispered, "He's awake." The lights flickered, humming violently. Ethan heard a low, wet sound, like a slow heartbeat echoing through the room. Then David moved. His head turned slightly toward Ethan. His mouth opened, a hoarse, bloody whisper escaping his throat. "You left me halfway, Ethan." Ethan screamed, stumbling against the wall. Eric ran forward, shouting, "You have to burn him!" His spirit still trapped. Ethan's mind raced. He grabbed a bottle of ethanol from the counter and splashed it over the body. David's ghost shrieked, his skin blistering. The room filled with the smell of burning flesh. Eric flicked a lighter and threw it. Flames erupted, roaring like a furnace. The fire alarms blared, sprinklers burst open, water pouring from the ceiling. David's screams turned to echoes, then silence. Ethan fell to his knees, coughing, soaked and shaking. When the firefighters arrived, Ethan was unconscious. Eric was gone. 3 days later, the morgue was officially closed. But Officer Laura Jenkins from the Maine State Police was assigned to review the security footage. She sat in the control room, her eyes fixed on the black and white monitor. At 3:07 a.m., she saw the fire start, just as the report said. But then something moved. David Monroe's body sat up in the middle of the flames. His skin was melting, yet his eyes stared directly into the camera. Laura's hands shook. She rewound the tape. Frame by frame, the face seemed closer. By the 5th replay, she slammed the monitor off and whispered, "This morgue is cursed." That night, before she left the hospital, the hallway lights flickered. And from the air vent above her, a voice whispered softly, "You forgot to close me up like." The next night, Officer Laura Jenkins sat inside her patrol car, parked outside St. Helena County Hospital. Rain poured against the windshield, and thunder rolled far in the distance. The hospital lights glowed dim behind the sheets of rain. Laura rubbed her eyes. She hadn't slept since she'd watched that footage. The one where David Monroe's burned corpse sat up and stared straight into the camera. No one believed her. Not the sheriff, not her colleagues. They said, "You're just tired, Laura. Get some rest." But how could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, half-burnt, staring, whispering, "You forgot to close me up." She sighed and reached for her radio. Unit 9 reporting. Nothing unusual tonight. But before she could sign off, the radio hissed and cracked. A faint male voice came through, broken, slow, and wet. "Laura, check the basement." Her heart skipped a beat. "Dispatch, say again," she asked. Silence, then static. Laura turned off the radio and looked at the hospital. The basement. The morgue. "No," she whispered. "It's sealed off." But the voice came again. Not from the radio this time. From behind her. Check the basement. Laura froze. She slowly turned around. No one was there. Her breath quickened. Against her better judgment, she got out of the car, flashlight in hand, and walked toward the hospital's side entrance. The automatic doors opened with a hiss. The power was dim. The hallway smelled of wet earth and rust. When she reached the basement stairs, she heard dripping water. Each step creaked under her boots. The deeper she went, the colder it became, the air thick with a sour, metallic odor. When she reached the bottom, she saw the morgue door, the same one she saw in the footage. But the police seal was ripped apart. "Who's here?" she called out, shining her flashlight around. The beam caught something on the wall, smeared handprints, bloody fresh. She took a shaky breath and stepped inside. The autopsy tables were still in place, but the walls were covered with symbols drawn in blood, and on one of the tables lay a body, covered with a white sheet. A name tag hung from the toe, Eric Parker. Laura's heart sank. Eric, the morgue attendant who'd vanished during the fire. She whispered, "No way." The light flickered. The sheet moved. Laura stepped back, gun trembling in her hand. Then a faint sound came, a slow whisper echoing from every corner of the room. He didn't finish it, he didn't seal us. Laura turned in every direction, but the whispers came from the walls, from the vents, from the floor itself. Her flashlight flickered. For a split second, she saw a reflection, a face behind her. She spun around. Nothing. The sheet on Eric's body slowly slid down. His eyes opened. They were black, hollow and endless. His lips twitched, and blood trickled down his chin. "You shouldn't be here, Laura." She stumbled back toward the door, but it slammed shut. Her flashlight fell and rolled across the floor. The room pulsed, the lights turning red, then dark again. Something began crawling along the wall. A shadow, long and twisted, dragging its limbs like a spider. Laura screamed, grabbed her flashlight, and aimed it. The shadow vanished. Then the body on the table sat up. Eric's head tilted unnaturally, bones cracking. His voice echoed, a mix of many voices, human and not. "We were never buried, we were never closed." He took a step forward, blood dripping on the floor. Laura fired, one shot, then another. The bullets hit, but Eric kept walking, each step leaving a bloody footprint. He reached out, touching her cheek with his cold, wet hand. "You opened the door. Laura, now it's your turn to close it." She screamed, shoving him away and bursting through the emergency exit. She ran up the stairs, breath ragged, as the lights behind her exploded one by one. When she finally reached the ground floor and looked back, the morgue door had sealed itself shut. And from behind it came one last whisper, soft but clear. "You forgot to close me up." The night after the hospital incident, Officer Laura Jenkins sat alone in her apartment in Portsmouth, Virginia. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Outside, thunder rolled across the ocean. Her uniform jacket hung soaked on the chair. She hadn't told anyone what really happened in the morgue. The official report said, "False alarm." But she knew what she saw. Laura poured herself a glass of whiskey, her hand trembling. She turned up the TV volume just to drown the silence, but the signal flickered. For a moment, the news anchor's face glitched into static. Then, a frame of a burned man's face flashed across the screen. David Monroe. Laura dropped the glass. Whiskey spread across the floor like blood. She whispered, "No, not again." Her phone rang. "Unknown number," she answered, voice shaking. "Hello." Silence. Then a whisper, the same one from the morgue. "You forgot to close me up." The call cut. The apartment lights flickered twice, then dimmed. Laura grabbed her gun and flashlight. "Not tonight," she muttered. The hallway outside was quiet, too quiet. She slowly stepped toward the bathroom. The door was half open. Inside, the mirror light was on. Drip, drip. Water trickled from the faucet, though she hadn't used it. She reached for the tap and froze. Her reflection didn't move. Laura's hand trembled. She lifted it higher. Her reflection stayed still, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Then, in the reflection, the door behind her began to close. But in reality, the door was already closed. Her reflection tilted its head and smiled. But Laura hadn't. "Close me up," it whispered, the lips moving slowly. Laura stepped back, but the mirror surface rippled like water. 2 pale hands pressed out from the other side, pushing the glass outward. Then serré seek. The mirror split, glass raining onto the sink. From inside the broken mirror, something crawled out, black smoke twisting into the shape of a man's burned face. David Monroe. The eyes were gone, only empty sockets weeping black liquid. He spoke in a voice that echoed from inside the walls. "You saw what you weren't supposed to see, Laura," she fired. Once, twice. The bullets passed through the smoke, hitting nothing. The lights exploded. Laura stumbled back, flashlight trembling. The shadow lunged at her, crawling on the ceiling now, whispering her name. "Laura, it's not over. You opened the door for all of us." She ran to the living room. The TV turned on by itself. The static now showed the morgue room. The same table, the same white sheet. And beneath it, movement. Something was still alive. Laura shouted, "What do you want from me?" The voice came from everywhere. The TV, the walls, her own reflection on the dark window. "To finish what you started." The shadow leaped from the TV, smashing her into the wall. The apartment went dark. When the neighbors later reported hearing screams, the police arrived, but found nothing. Just the shattered mirror and a single message written on the bathroom wall in black ash. "You forgot to close me up." The next morning, Dr. Ethan Clarke, head of St. Helena Hospital, walked through the morgue corridor with his assistant Olivia Reed. The hallway smelled like bleach and rust. The walls still showed faint stains from the night before. A night everyone was trying to forget. "I don't believe in ghosts," Olivia said softly. "But after what happened to Laura Jenkins, we don't talk about that." Ethan cut her off. "We finish the reports. We move on." They reached morgue room 3, the one that had been sealed after the incident. A sign on the door read, "Restuiad ia anvistiion." Ethan pushed it open anyway. The metal tables were cold, the air thick with disinfectant and decay. In the center lay a covered body, tag number face 7. "Who's this one?" Olivia asked, scanning her clipboard. "Unidentified male. Found near the river last night. Looks burned," she said quietly. "Another overdose or suicide," Ethan replied. "Let's start." They rolled back the white sheet. The face underneath was twisted, half burned. The skin melted, eyes hollow. But something about the jawline felt familiar. Ethan leaned closer and froze. The tag tied to the wrist read, "Officer Laura Jenkins." Olivia stepped back, her face pale. "Sir, that's impossible. Officer Jenkins, she's missing." Ethan interrupted. His voice trembled. "But this can't be her." As they stared, a faint click echoed, the sound of the lights flickering on by themselves. Then the freezer doors began to open one by one. Each drawer slid out, revealing a body, all burned, all disfigured. Their name tags, David Monroe, Maruti Rao, Laura Jenkins. Olivia screamed. "This isn't possible." The lights burst, one after another, showering sparks. The air turned cold. From the walls, whispers rose, the same voice from every corner. "You forgot to close us up." Ethan stumbled backward. "What do you want from me?" The corpses sat up, their eyes blood-black tears. David's burned lips moved slowly. "We want you to finish the last autopsy." The tables began to shake violently. Metal clenched. The body on table 7 sat upright. Laura's corpse stared at Ethan and smiled. "You opened the door," she whispered. "Now you have to close it." Suddenly, every light in the room went red. The monitors screamed flat lines. Olivia turned to run, but the door slammed shut. Hands burst through the floor tiles, grabbing her legs. She screamed as the corpses dragged her under. Ethan was left alone, trembling. He stumbled to the corner, his hands over his ears as whispers filled the air. "Doctor, you've done this before," the voices said. "You cut without closing. You left us open." He shook his head. "No, I only followed orders. And now you'll follow ours." The bodies stood around him, forming a circle. David stepped forward, placing a surgical blade in Ethan's hand. "Autopsy yourself," David whispered, "so we can finally rest." Ethan's hands shook violently. He screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the cold. Moments later, the morgue fell silent again. When security entered hours later, they found only one body on the table. Dr. Ethan Clarke, chest cut open, eyes wide in horror, holding a bloody scalpel in his hand. The surveillance cameras showed nothing but flickering static. But in the final second of the footage, table 7 moved slightly, and a whisper echoed through the speakers. "He finally closed us up."